What's up, YouTube? I'm Mike, and today we're back talking about steroids again. But before I even get to that, let me just say thank you to all the new fans on our fan site. Every time I mention it, we get more fans. So that's really cool. My wife basically runs those sites, just so you know. So like when you read she's getting a little creative in the captions, and she's kind of coming out of her shell a little bit. I'm gonna have her recording a little bit more personalized videos, kind of talking through the process that she's been going through, trying to get comfortable with that space. So you might see some videos coming up from her on there. She basically runs those entire pages. I just do all the video editing and photo editing and stuff. It's primarily photos, but so thank you to those of you who have jumped over to either the free or the paid site. We really appreciate that. So today what we're going to be talking about is the psychological effects of steroids. I've spent a lot of time on this channel talking about the physical side effects that I've experienced in the last 4 years of using and now sort of abusing steroids. And I noticed over the last, several months that the space that I'm in psychologically has changed like remarkably from the beginning, and it has made it difficult really for me to be able to communicate with guys who have either never done gear, or who are trying to start their first cycle and they have lots of questions and concerns about the safety of all of these compounds. So I decided to make a quick video. Well, it's probably not gonna be quick, but I decided to make a video talking about just how much my mindset has changed from the very beginning. So about 4 years ago, back in, I guess it was 2019, when I started lifting natty again, and then toward the end of 2019, I made what I thought was like this really major decision in life, which was to go on testosterone replacement therapy. At that point in my life, I had never ever used a needle of any kind. I was terrified of needles. Every once in a while when I would be going fishing or something, after like a rain, there'd be a lot of debris washed up on the bank, and I would see like an insulin pen, and it would make my fucking skin crawl. Like I just was totally anti-needle my entire life, and that was one of the major reasons that I never used steroids when I was younger. I just couldn't wrap my head around it. And then there's all of the bad data that you read if you've never done steroids, if you don't have any experience, you don't realize, like, you don't have a concept of bro science, really. You don't understand that the vast majority of the data that's out there about steroids is totally wrong, or totally exaggerated, or totally misleading in one form or fashion or another. And so guys who are trying to make a decision about whether or not they want to go down this slippery slope pathway and either get onto TRT or do their first steroid cycle, there's lots of fears and concerns about what it is that they're putting into their bodies and what the long-term effects are going to be. And that was definitively me. As hard as it is to imagine at this point looking back, I will never forget when my first TRT kit came in the mail. And I'm watching the video, and it's showing you how to like use the drawing syringe to pull down, the amount of oil you're supposed to use in your shot, and then you screw on this 25 gauge needle, and they're showing you where to jab yourself with what looks like a very large needle, and and I'm trying to like get up the courage basically to do this. And when you're starting out, like, you have this idea because of the way like movies and TV and popular culture kind of blows steroids out of proportion. I get this a lot on one of my videos titled 500 what you can really expect from 500 milligrams of testosterone. Guys will come around and be like, well, damn, bro, you didn't even really get that big. You only gained 10 pounds. Like, you should have like totally blown up on that cycle. And that's what I think a lot of people who are not in the know expect. It's certainly what I expected. Like, I thought I was going to jump on steroids and I was just going to fucking blow up overnight. And so you start TRT at 200 milligrams a week, and basically nothing happens, Week 1 comes and goes. Week 2 comes and goes. I can remember one of the things that I read, and it seems so laughable now. But when I was researching my TRTs with Royal Men's Medical Center, they have been phenomenal. I've been with them for 4 years. You can use code MikeFit if you decide to sign up with them, and they'll give you 6 months off the first, your first. They'll give you a discount off your first 6 months. They've been phenomenal since day one. But I was reading some of their reviews, guys talking about their experience being on TRT, and one of the things that I read quite frequently was that the guys were experiencing like this pounding in their chest. Like within the first few weeks of being on TRT, they'd be laying in bed at night and it would almost feel like their body was rocking, that their heart was beating so hard. And there were multiple reports on the website where guys said that was the reason that they chose to quit doing TRT, that it just didn't feel good. It made them nervous that something was wrong. And sure enough, when I started TRT, in the early going, during that come up phase, I experienced some of that pounding feeling. It was like my heart was beating harder than normal, and it would almost literally cause my body to just kind of shake in the bed with every beat. And I remember talking to my wife about it, like, man, I don't know if this is good, like she feel like she could feel the vibration on her side of the bed. It's like, how could this be good for you? And that's all the way down at 200 milligrams of test C per week. And so that's where the mindset starts, is when you get into this game, you have all these, like I had all these rules in my head, like, where I'm trying to convince myself that what I'm doing is medically efficacious and safe. It's like, well, my T level was low. It was like 531, which is getting on the lower end of the scale. It had been dropping like 100 points a year for 3 consecutive years. I knew it was going to get worse. My free T was in the toilet. I wasn't feeling good. And so I'm telling myself, as long as this doesn't cause any problems. And my wife and I are having a conversation about it because she was nervous about it. And so she, because you read all the horror stories, and heart attacks and strokes and cholesterol problems, and you think that you're signing up for this really big deal. And so, we talked about it, and I kind of had this agreement that as long as my biomarkers and everything were okay, that it's just medicine. It's just like any other drug the doctor might prescribe you. There's gonna be some side effects, but it's all within the realm of the medical community. So I start TRT, and I'm loving it. And I start making gains, and I put on 12 pounds of muscle in the first 3 months that I was on TRT. My body looked better than it had ever looked in life. My strength was bigger. I had more strength than ever. Like, my libido came back into like everything she was loving it. Like, in the beginning, my wife thought TRT was a fucking godsend, because I had tried the psych drugs and all of the other things, and nothing consistently worked. And here I was, completely off psych meds, no Xanax, no e-cigarette, no SSRIs that cause a whole host of miserable effects. And I'm on TRT, and I'm in the gym, and we're having a great time, and everything is going great. And sure enough, within the first 4 or so weeks, the pounding heart sensation went away, or I got used to it, whatever it really is, and we went on down the road. And so after about 3 months of being on TRT, my gains are kind of plateauing. And by this point, I've gotten more comfortable with the needles, and I've started reading on message boards and digging a little deeper and starting to notice some of the bigger guys in the gym. And now my physique is starting to look more unnatural. And so I'm kind of feeling more a part of the group. And you start kind of branching out and asking questions and doing a little bit more research. And that's when I started thinking to myself, well, it's like, I'm already doing testosterone. My body seems to tolerate it well. And then I found, like, I was watching More Plates, More Dates every single day. I'm getting all of the data from him. And he had done a video about safe and effective doses of testosterone. And it's the classic study that many YouTubers have talked about, where they gave guys doses as high, it was like 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 600 milligrams a week for like 20 plus weeks, and they looked at all their biomarkers and everything, and they determined that doses of testosterone as high as 600 milligrams per week were very well tolerated by like the overwhelming majority of study participants. They just didn't have any problems at all. And so that's when, you start thinking, okay, maybe we're going to up the ante a little bit. And so that's your first step in going from this is medicine to this is performance enhancement. And so I ran my first cycle at 500 milligrams of test per week. And again, it was just like it was starting TRT over again. The same exact effects. I got more libido. I got more estrogen production, so I had to learn to manage that. I got more strength in the gym. I started building more muscle. And over the course of that first, I think I only ran 12 weeks, like I didn't know. I thought like you got to keep it short, like there's going to be all these problems if you go too long, you need to clean out. And so I ran 500 milligrams of test for like 12 weeks and had great time and gained another 10 pounds of muscle. So now I'm 20 pounds of muscle up from my starting point, which is one TRT cycle, one 500 milligram test cycle. And now I'm really starting to feel this. Now I'm really starting to feel like a bodybuilder because my body is starting to look very atypical from your average natty in the gym. I certainly didn't look like a giant. I don't look anything like I did now, but my body was starting to take on the shape that people are kind of like who've known you for a while are starting to take notice. Like, damn, dude's kind of getting big pretty quick, and he's not getting fat. He seems to just be gaining muscle overnight. And so guys around the office are starting to notice, and you're walking with a different swagger, and your shirts are fitting a little bit different, and your attitude toward ladies and toward, various situations in the office, suddenly you start coming across differently. And all of these things begin to feed into the into the psychology that you're now developing. And so what happens, or at least what happened for me, is at 500 milligrams, everything was fine. Like, my lipids, shot up a little bit, but my AST, ALT, as you would expect, all of my other biomarkers are good. I wasn't feeling bad. I struggled to manage the estrogen. I had a little gyno flare up, but no big deal because it was only 12 weeks. And so at that point in my steroid career, I really felt like, okay, now you've got to get off. You can't run this more than 12 weeks. You got to drop back down to 200. And so I start doing research about, how long do I need to be off? You need to be off, some people say twice as long as you were on, or at least as long as you were on. And depending on what you look at and who you talk to, the opinions on how you should handle your off periods can vary wildly. And so I got off the 500 milligram cycle, and of course you don't feel it immediately. So it's like that first 3 to 4 weeks being off cycle, not half bad. You're thinking, okay, cool, I can handle this. Week 5, 6 starts coming around. You start noticing your strength is going in the fucking toilet. Your endurance is going in the toilet. You're not feeling quite as good as you were feeling before. All of those little extras that you were getting, not just in the gym, but in the bedroom, in the boardroom, like talking to ladies, like everything in your life had been enhanced in this really positive way. You weren't getting any negative side effects. You weren't having fucked up blood work. And so again, you start to your psychology toward the situation starts to change. Now you've gotten comfortable with the needle. You've really gotten comfortable with the needle because you're injecting multiple times a week. But you've also gotten comfortable with being outside of the reference range. Because when you get on TRT at 200 milligrams per week, you're already outside of the reference range. So when I would go get my blood work done, the top end of the reference range would be 1100, and my blood work would come back greater than 1500. And the doctor would just say, are you feeling okay? Are you having any anxiety? Are you having any heart palpitations? Are you having any trouble sleeping? And I'm like, no, everything's good. He's like, okay, well, cool. We're not really worried about those numbers. Those are peak numbers. You're going to trough back down in the normal range during the week. So the fact that you're flagging a little high, as long as you don't have any side effects, your estrogen seems to be good, we're good to go. So it's like, great. Well, if 1500 nanogram, if being 500 nanograms per, per,
500 nanograms per deciliter over the top end of the reference range is okay,
deciliter over the top end of the reference range is okay, then why not? 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 W then what difference does it make if I go to 500? So you go to 500, and now I'm like 300 or 3,000 nanograms per deciliter. My fucking TRT doses. My free testosterone's through the fucking roof, and I actually had to go see my regular doctor during this period of time, and I'm thinking he's gonna freak the fuck out. He's gonna see this 3,000 nanogram per deciliter testosterone level, and he's going to tell me I'm killing myself and I have to pull the plug immediately. And he looks at the paperwork and he's like, your test's a little high. And I'm like, yeah, been on TRT, like maybe they don't have my dose dialed in very well. And he's like, yeah, you should probably talk to him. That's pretty high. That's a pretty high level. That was it. So you're like, okay, doctor doesn't seem to be too freaked out about this. And so what happens is it trains you to start thinking differently about reference ranges. You no longer worry that, oh my God, my T is 3 times the top end of the reference range. Doc doesn't seem to care. TRT clinic doesn't seem to care. Not having any physical problems, not having any psychological problems. And so basically what it does is it retrains your brain to not trust the medical metrics. You don't trust the ranges anymore because you recognize that now you are in this different category of human. You are an enhanced human. Your numbers are not going to reflect anywhere close to what these reference ranges are telling you they should. And so now you're kind of in this no man's land territory where you start to realize I can't gauge whether what I'm doing is hurting myself just on numbers on a paper. Because you can go get blood work and for example, be on no orals, just test, but training your ass off. If you're training 4 or 5 days in the week and a week and you're training very hard, you go get blood work done, your AST, ALT levels can be totally out of whack just from the training. And so when you get blood work from your doctor and your liver enzymes flag high, and you panic because this is brand new to you, so you think, oh my God, everyone's right, I'm destroying my liver. And the doctor's like, it's a transient, it's a low, it's not really anything to worry about. Have you been sick? Have you had a cold? Did you go binge drinking? It's like, no, but I weight train like 5 days a week. He's like, oh, that's probably that. It's like, he doesn't even worry about it. So again, now you have this second metric on your blood work where your whole life you've been taking pleasure in knowing that everything in my blood work is in the green every year. Like I had never had anything that was not in the green my whole life. And so, well, AST had been out of whack when I had the flu or whatever, but for the most part, you're operating under this idea that as long as every one of your biomarkers is in the green, then you're in the green. And then all of a sudden your test flag's really high. Doc doesn't seem too concerned. Your fucking ALT comes back 2 times the top end of the reference range. Doc doesn't seem to be too concerned. Your creatinine levels is a little high. Doc says again, maybe you're a little dehydrated. Could be side effects of all the heavy training. Maybe you should take a few more days rest from the gym. But you're not looking like a freak. As far as the doctor's seeing, you just look like you're in pretty good shape. And so your BMI is not crazy out of control. At this point, I'm probably like 165, I'm 5'10", 165, so by no means am I a giant, not even close. Doctor doesn't even think anything is going on. And so again, you just kind of get lulled into this false sense of security. So next, it's like, what are we going to do? How about a little test, Deca and Dbol? And for me, that was the first sign where I knew that I was really pushing limits. Because when I jumped on the test, Deca and Dbol, obviously I'm not feeling the test and the Deca right out the gate, but the Dbol hit me like a fucking freight train. And so that was what I consider like my first real experience with steroids. Because testosterone, that's the thing. Like a lot of guys, they talk to me on Instagram or something. They're getting ready to do their first test cycle, and they're all amped up or they're all worried. And I'm telling them like, you need to control your expectations. This is not going to be life altering. Okay, you jump on 500 milligrams of test. This is not street drugs. It's not like you're gonna, you do a little line of cocaine, boy. You're like, wow, I'm fucking feeling something. Dude, you can pin a lot of testosterone and really not have any really remarkable effects. Maybe a little sped up, you know. Psychologically, you don't really notice test a lot. You know, it's a happy drug. You feel good on it, but it's not groundbreaking. It's not gonna, if you're expecting to notice some strong psychological difference, you're gonna probably have to take a fuck ton of tests to feel anything. And so, but that Dbol, that's like your first real roid experience, because you pop the fucking Dbol and within 30 minutes, it's like, rah, here we fucking go. And I'm in the gym throwing the fucking plates on. I'm fucking sweating. I've got this psychological fucking pump that I've never felt in life. I'm sending my wife text messages about how I just want to fucking rip the paneling off the walls and throw the machines over, and I just feel this intensity. And it's a fucking lot, and it's addictive. And so all of a sudden, you know, you're eating these fucking Dbol pills and you're just amped to the fucking max all day. Super strong, you know, psychological effects. I couldn't sit still. I'm outside. I'm going to the gym, lifting for an hour and a half to 2 hours. I'm coming home. I'm eating dinner. I'm going to walk laps around my neighborhood, trying to burn off some of this fucking energy. My wife is talking about all of this intensity that I'm experiencing. And then in my case, it was short-lived because I didn't know at the time. I was still brand new to this, how sensitive I am to estrogen. So I start getting massive gyno, all of these estrogenic-related problems. I start trying to, you know, just like in the dark, haphazardly dose of Arimidex to control it. My shit's all over the place, and I started getting like itchy hands, itchy feet, and basically what happened was I panicked. I got concerned that the Dbol was harsh on my liver. I'd read it a million times. Dbol's like really bad for your liver, and you read all the horror stories. And so I only ran Dbol for like two and a half weeks or so, and I just was like, fuck it, I pulled the plug on it. So by that time, you know, the test is starting to kind of kick in, and then eventually the Deca starts kicking in, and now like I've got a good healthy dose of androgens in my system. So I think for that cycle, I ended up running 500 milligrams of test and 300 milligrams of Deca. So it was the most androgens I'd ever used. I started getting the joint lubrication, and I just felt really strong. I was eating good, and that was a period in my training history where PRs started just becoming the name of the game. Like every day you're going to the gym, it's PR, PR, PR. You're finally starting to put some respectable fucking plates on your bench. You know, you're starting to feel like, okay, I'm actually becoming a bodybuilder. I can really say that I'm a bodybuilder. I did an entire video about what it's like to do test and Deca. You can look back in the history of my videos. Maybe I'll link it up here. I usually don't take the time, but and I had a really great cycle on Deca. I put on a lot of weight. I kept it lean and clean. I didn't gain all of the crazy fucking water weight that everybody talks about. And my Deca cycle went really, really good, despite the fact that, honestly, I did not feel great during the cycle. And lo and behold, it ended up being that the Deca was causing my prolactin to increase, and I wasn't properly managing my estrogen. And so I unfortunately blamed Deca for really not producing the greatest psychological effect in my life, and it ended up really not being, you know, it's just that the Deca causes you to have to onboard other ancillaries. And but the point here is, however, that despite the fact that now I'm using 2 different compounds and I'm starting to have real problems, I'm starting to have real psychological issues where I'm not feeling good all the time. You know, I thought I was damaging my liver with the Dbol, so I stopped taking it. My estrogen was all over the place. I had gyno, but I'm growing. I'm growing constantly. And so this is the point of this video, where I'm saying, like, you start out in this one place where it's like, okay, I'm gonna do steroids, I'm gonna do TRT, but I'm gonna approach this from the most health conscientious avenue that I can. And so as long as everything stays normal, then I'm going to keep doing this. But the second things start getting out of line, then we're going to call it quits. And like I've been trying to illustrate in this video, it doesn't really happen that way because you start figuring out that you can't really trust all of the individual metrics to tell you the truth. And so now you're in this state where you've got this false sense of security. You're gaining all this weight. You're getting all this attention from everyone around you. You feel great. Sometimes you feel bad. And so it's like you start to make excuses for not feeling good. It's like, well, I don't feel great on Deca, but my joints are good, my lifts are good, I'm gaining a lot of weight, I look fucking awesome, I'm making all this progress, and so I'm going to ignore the bad feelings because the goods outweigh the bads. And this is the beginning of really what was the end for me. So at this point, I've been training for over like probably 2 years now, I can't remember. I did TRT, and then I did 500 milligram test cycle. Then I took like 13 or 14 weeks off. Then I did the test and Deca Dbol cycle, which ended up really being test and Deca, and I think I ran that for 16 weeks. Then I took like 12, 13, 14 weeks off. Already during my off periods, I'm starting to not really feel the off period. So you go from, what is that? 800 milligrams of gear, 500 tests, 300 Deca. And then all of a sudden your cycle ends and you've been pinning all this oil. And now you've got this little half cc shot twice a week of tests. And that's all you get. And you're like, fuck, dude. Because you know every time you come off blast, growing phase is over. Now we're in maintenance, healing, recovery phase. And if you're a guy like me, dude, like, fucking maintenance, healing, recovery phase sucks dick. I don't want to be, now I'm like, 175, lean. I've been in the game for a little over a year, I think, and I would just want to get big. I kept saying to my wife, it's like, at 175, at 5'10", 175, like, you look good with your shirt off. And with your shirt on, like if you're wearing a polo or something, your arms that are exposed, people can tell you lift. But like it's not really standing out. You're not turning a whole lot of heads at 5'10", 175. Even though you're 175 shredded, you really got to get your clothes off to really get any attention. And that's one of the things that, people idolize the Brad Pitt Fight Club body. The Brad Pitt Fight Club body only looks good when he's fighting. You put a dress shirt on Brad Pitt and Fight Club, it's like, do you even lift, bro? Like, have you ever been in the gym? And that's one of the things that sucks when you're a year into it. You're a year into cycling steroids. You've put 20 pounds of muscle on your frame, so you know that you've had all of this amazing progress. But when you start out at fucking 135, 140 soaking wet, 5'10", you're a really little guy. And so, yeah, you're up to 170, but you're still dwarfed by the majority of men. And with regular fucking clothes on, you just don't look like a person who's investing all of this time and energy and health risk into trying to be a bodybuilder. And so, of course, when you go into these off periods, fucking 16 weeks of being off feels like an eternity. And so what happens is the off periods start shrinking. At least they did for me. So I got to the point where I never was off more than maybe 12, 13 weeks at the max. And by this time, like I said, I've been doing a year's worth of research. I've been watching Derek, more plates, more dates. I'm tracking bodybuilding shows. I'm watching, I'm looking at all of Greg Doucette's different breakdowns of steroids. So I'm learning about Anavar, Trenbolone, Masteron, Primo. Like, I'm starting to really understand all the steroid pharmacology, and I'm trying to figure out what it is that I'm going to do next, because I was going to do something next. And so for my third cycle, I decided to throw caution to the wind, because what I really wanted to do was Tren. That's what I really wanted to do. I had bought several items. I had bought some Masteron, I had some Anavar, I had some Test, and I had actually started Test and Masteron, I think it was right before I got my teeth done. And the mast, I tried to front load the mast, and I pinned like 600 milligrams of mast in one shot, and it fucking spiked the shit out of my blood pressure. And my dental guy was like, man, you gotta get this blood pressure down if you want us to do the surgery. He's like, I don't know what you're taking, it's none of my business, but you gotta get off. So I pulled out all the androgens so that I could get my fucking teeth done. Got my oral surgery, which led to some recovery, so that pushed me out another couple of weeks before I really felt comfortable going hard again. And by that time, you know, that was another major pivotal point in my life, because I'd always had really bad teeth. I had like I had a crooked tooth, lots of missing teeth. If you go back to the beginning of my entire channel, you can see what my teeth used to look like before I got them done. And so it was always a point of insecurity for me. And so now I've got all this extra muscle on my frame, and I'm feeling better about myself, and then I get my teeth done, and for the first time in my life, I've got these perfectly straight, pearly whites. I'm not afraid to smile anymore. I'm never ashamed to walk up and talk to people. There was this girl at the office that I'd been talking to for a while. My confidence level went up talking to girls, and honestly, it started causing problems in my marriage. You know, it's like you know, luckily I didn't have this problem with my wife and her breast implants, but a lot of times a girl gets breast implants and she's with a guy, and it's like it's a known fact that like often girls will leave the guy that she's with when she gets breast implants, because it's like they have this attitude like, well, if I got this guy with no tits, like who can I get? What kind of a guy can I get now that I look even better? And as much as I hate to admit it, I think there was a psychological factor for with me like that, with my new body and my pearly white teeth. And I think that it kind of created some distance between my wife and I started being kind of cocky and arrogant and like less willing to like give any ground when we were fighting. And so we ended up in this big fight, and she actually left, and she was staying with her parents, and I had this Trenbolone that I had purchased sitting around the house, and I had been scared to death of it, because everything I read was Trenbolone is the relationship killer. Trenbolone will send you to prison. If you have a volatile attitude, do not take Trenbolone. Just like every horror story you could possibly imagine, it's neurotoxic, it's hepatotoxic, it's kidney toxic. It'll make your fucking toes melt off. I mean, it's like people talk about Trenbolone like it's just absolute fucking lithium battery acid, and if you put it in your veins, you're just going to disintegrate overnight. Nothing could possibly be further from the truth. And I have this unique kind of personality type where I'm kind of like, the more you tell me I shouldn't do something, the fucking more I want to do it. The more you hate on something, the more I'm kind of like, I don't trust hate. People hate on things they're jealous of. People hate on things they want and can't have. That is generally the way hate works. And so when I'm reading all of these things from these people saying, yeah, Tren is this really badass drug, but I had to quit because I couldn't handle it, what that says to me is that Tren's not a bad drug. You're just a fucking pussy. And so me and my wife are fighting. She's out of town. She's staying with her parents. I got up one morning and I was like, today's the fucking day. And I remember loading up that syringe, you know, for the first time. And Tren has got that fucking copper orange color. It kind of looks toxic in the vial compared to everything else you've been injecting. You know, your Test, your Deca, it's like clear, little yellow, you know. It just has a look. And you look at Tren, and it kind of looks like it might be lithium battery acid. It looks like I expected it. When I'm looking at Tren in the vial, I'm expecting it to like literally burn as it's going in. And so I pulled down this syringe, and I actually made a video. I'm gonna see if I can try to find this video where I talked about like, okay, here it is. I hope I don't end up in prison, but this is what I'm gonna fucking do. And I made this whole video prefacing like this, what I thought was just gonna be this pivotal, you know, potentially life-ending moment. And I fucking slammed the 200 milligrams of, or 100 milligrams of Tren. So I started out at 200 milligrams for a week for the first cycle that I ran. And Holy fuck. I mean, within week 1, I'm fucking feeling it, dude. Tren E, week 1, I'm already like becoming a sexual monster. Week 2, I'm sitting in Monday morning meetings or like Monday afternoon meetings. We would have these lunch meetings at the company I worked at Sunbelt Material Handling. And they would have like sandwiches catered in or whatever, and there'd be guys sitting around me eating fucking potato chips. And the sound of them crunching those chips all around me by week 2 on Tren, I wanted to fucking strangle the shit out of everybody. I'm just in the fucking meeting, just like fucking angry, just seething. I'm just texting my wife, these motherfuckers with these chips. And so it just like, the Tren took hold of me in a major fucking way. And every single conceivable negative side effect that has ever been reported about Tren, every single one of them, I got every one of them in major ways. I'm drenching the fucking bed sheets. I am homicidal. I'm fucking road rage, blow up fights with my wife. Like, you name it, it was all over me. And for whatever reason, despite the fact that this is an example where, like, apparently a lot of fucking people who do steroids, they have a similar experience with Tren, and they're like, this is the worst fucking thing I've ever put into my body. It is destroying every one of my relationships. It's making me paranoid. I can't sleep. I'm a psychopath. I'm like, this is a dumpster fire. I've literally had people say that multiple times in the comments. Tren is a fucking dumpster fire. It will destroy your whole life. And a lot of people fucking pull the plug. And what I did is I upped the fucking dose. So I was at 200 milligrams, feeling the full effects of the Tren, and I was just decided, like, I don't think 200 milligrams is really gonna be enough, and so I bumped it to fucking 300, and it was just like, fucking party on. During that period of time on my first Tren cycle, I believe I was running, if I remember correctly, I was running Test, Tren, and Anavar. I don't think I had any mass. I think it was Test, Tren, and Anavar. I have videos about this shit. It was after I did my Deca cycle, I got fat. Like during my recovery period, coming off Test and Deca, I kept eating like I was on cycle, and it was the biggest I'd ever been, like body fat wise. And I just didn't notice it somehow. It got away from me, and one day I was standing out in the backyard. My wife took a picture of me. I was flexing in the backyard. My wife took a picture of me. My fucking gut was all distended, and you couldn't see abs at all. And I was like, oh my God. What the fuck? Like, how did I let this happen? I was like, that's it. I got to fucking cut. So I jump on Test, Tren, and Anavar, and I cut 12 pounds of body fat in a very short period of time. And on my first cycle of Tren, while I'm going into the fucking bathroom every morning or every evening, and I'm weighing, and it's like half a pound, pound, my weight is starting to peel off my frame. I'm measuring my biceps at the same time, and my biceps are getting bigger. And so my first Tren cycle, I recomped like a motherfucker. I took like 12 pounds of body fat and put almost an inch on my fucking biceps while I was cutting. And that was the most fucking game-changing experience I'd ever had, because every one of my cuts or off periods saw me losing progress. And so now I'm going to my first ever cut, and I'm expecting that I'm going to look good at the end of it, but that I'm going to lose mass. Like, that's part of the problem. So I'd already psychologically prepared myself to lose body fat and to lose muscle and to be harder and leaner, but not as big. And when my muscles were growing while I was losing body fat, it was like love at first sight. I did not give a fuck about anything that this compound was doing to my life, to my relationships, to my physical health, to my career. Watching my biceps grow while the fat was melting off of my abs, it just took possession of my soul. And I have been in love with Tren ever since. I was fucking the shit out of my wife two times a day, sometimes 3 times a day. The workouts were so fucking savage. I could work out for 2 hours straight and be setting PRs on my last set of my last fucking exercise. It was just like all of the stars had aligned, and I think it was around this time that I made one of my most popular videos titled Trenbolone Love Affair, where I was just, I felt that cycle on Tren, I felt was like, it was like a fucking 12-week honeymoon. It was just like nothing in life had ever compared to that. I had been a speed addict for years, and Tren and Test and Anavar, and I just, the thought of doing street drugs just seemed absurd. It's like, why would I ever do anything than this? I can look amazing. I can feel amazing. I am dominating the workplace. I'm dominating the bedroom. Now people are really starting to ask questions like, bro, what the fuck? You know, I jumped up again. So like, I cut 12 pounds of body fat off, and I got down to whatever, I don't remember what that weight was. And then I did another cycle with Tren where I bulked on it and jumped up to, I think, 183, which was the biggest I'd ever been. I think I even bulked on Tren. It was Tren, Test, Tren. I don't know if Mass was in that cycle or not. But I did a full bulk on Tren and gained like another 12 pounds of lean tissue. And so by this point, I know this video is running on massively long. At this point, I'm basically completely out of, I'm off the reservation. Like, by the time I fell in love with Tren, there was no objectivity was gone. I mean, the Tren was objectively causing me a massive number of problems in life. I almost got myself fired from work twice. I almost burned out my relationship countless times. I was on the verge of killing somebody on the road. I almost beat the shit out of a guy in the gym one day. My wife literally pulled me off of this guy. I was trying to get on top of him on a fucking on a bench, like a dumbbell bench. Like, I was completely out of control. I wasn't sleeping anything more than maybe 5 hours a night. I had raging paranoia. I had muscle cramps from electrolyte imbalances. I had fucking full-blown gyno and didn't give a shit because I didn't know that I actually ended up crushing my estrogen during this period of time because I kept taking more Arimidex trying to figure out why my bitch tits wouldn't go away, only to later find out that it was the prolactin that was causing it. And so I crashed my estrogen into the toilet. It's like all over the place. But by this point, I was so sucked in that psychologically I did not care about any of the costs anymore. Nothing mattered except the feeling. Nothing mattered except the gains, the strength, the PRs, just everything that these drugs and these quantities were providing. It's all I fucking cared about. And so one thing led to another, and my off periods got smaller and smaller and smaller to the point that I basically quit having real off periods. And so I went from a place where I would be like off for 13 weeks, and then it got to the point where I was only off for 8 weeks. And then it got to the point where it was like I was never really off because my cruise would be like 300 milligrams of some shit. So like one cruise, I did 200 milligrams of test and 100 milligrams of MPP. That's what I cruised on for like 8 weeks before I jumped back on blast. And then it was somewhere in that period of time that I came across all the research saying that low doses of Trenbolone were actually healthier than high doses of testosterone. And I decided to go on a 1-year Trenbolone cruise where I still did blasts, but I ran 50 milligrams of Trenbolone for a year straight on top of all of the other shit that I ran here and there. And so, to summarize all of this rambling and ranting and walk down Trenbolone steroid memory lane, I have now gotten to a place where, you know, a guy will contact me on Instagram, and he'll, like, this guy contacted me the other day, and he's like, I've never done a cycle before. I'm thinking about using MK677. What do you think about that as a cycle? And I'm like, it's not a cycle. What do you mean? unless there's steroids in the game, it's not a cycle. Like, I've almost gotten to the point where I can't even, it's almost like there's enhanced people and then there's everybody else. Like, I've really gotten to the point where it's almost like the thought of not being on steroids just, it doesn't compute to me. I'm going to do this until the day that I fucking die. I can't imagine a life lived natty ever again. And so people will ask me, why do you run steroids year round? You know, why would you run steroids when you're on vacation and you're not bulking or you're not going to the gym regularly? Why would you run steroids? Why would you run year round? Why aren't you taking time off? Why aren't you resting? Why aren't you doing these things? Because steroids have become a lifestyle to me. It's not just about gaining. Like, let's say, like right now I'm at 206 in the morning. I woke up 206 this morning. Hopefully I'll be back up close to 210, 208 this evening. So I'm coming back up from being sick. Wherever my weight stops at. Let's just say it stops at 200 again. Let's say I lose everything that I've gained on the MK677 and I get back to 200 pounds, and that's as big as I'm going to be for the rest of my life. Even if I get to a place where I'm never going to be bigger than 200 pounds, I'm still going to run steroids year round until I die. Because the steroids for me, steroids are not just muscle building agents anymore. They're not just performance enhancing drugs. Steroids for me have become life enhancing drugs. I take steroids in the quantities and the compounds and the combinations that I do because they enhance every facet of my life. They give me more confidence day in, day out in any interaction that I engage in, whether it's going on a job interview, buying a new car, negotiating a loan. Anything that I do at a higher level psychologically because of the androgen load that I have in my system. At least that's what I believe. My performance in the bedroom is absolutely not that of a 43-year-old man. Not even fucking close. My ability to operate in the bedroom, I want to be 70 years old and fucking like I'm 18 or 19. And I believe that you can do that with the right compounds. So psychologically, physically, I genuinely believe that steroids are the fountain of youth. Now, they may kill you earlier than you would have otherwise lived. Like, if I wasn't taking all these things, I could probably all of my grandparents lived to be over 95 years old. Well, one of them didn't. Three of my four grandparents lived at least till 95 years old. So I have a lot of longevity genes in my gene pool. I have exactly zero desire to ever see 95 or 80 or 70. And if I live to be 70, it will only be because I was able to get there loaded on fucking steroids. I don't ever want to feel old. I don't ever want to experience age in the conventional way. And so the older I get, it seems the more shit that I end up taking to try to hold on to the feelings of youth. And eventually that's going to tap my body out, and I would rather die at 45 or 50 or 55 or 60 having been performing like an 18-year-old man all the way up until that point, rather than die at 60, 70 or 80 or 90 and having been this decrepit old man for 40 fucking years. I don't want to not be able to function in the bedroom with my wife. I don't want to lose my drive and my aggression and my willpower and my need to conquer things and to fucking dominate things and to advance constantly, to grow, to give a shit. I watch people get old and they just go out in the backyard and they read books and they don't seem to really care about anything, and somebody cuts them off in traffic and they're like, no big deal. And they just become these fucking lumps in life. It's like, why are you even here? Just get out of the way. I don't want to live that life. And so psychologically, I went from a place where I got into this game saying I'm going to try to take testosterone for the purposes of putting my body back into a natural state. I'm going to replace what my body doesn't have anymore, and I'm going to keep all my biomarkers in line. And now I'm in this place where I'm a total freak of nature. I have next to zero biomarker. Well, still, the vast majority of my biomarkers are in line. My cholesterol's through the fucking roof. My AST, ALT stays fucked up. But other than that, my biomarkers are in line. But I have a lot of signs and symptoms of a person who is putting an unnecessary strain on their body. And I just don't give a fuck at all, because it is the cost of being able to perform at the level that I perform at and look like I look for my age, and I intend to maintain this as long as humanly possible. So, rant over. The purpose of this was just to try to illustrate in chronological order how I went from this person who like was terrified of needles and thought 200 milligrams of testosterone was completely insane and out of control, to a person who is now running 350 milligrams of test, 500 milligrams of, 350 milligrams of Tren, 500 milligrams of test, 200 milligrams of Masteron, and those doses are probably all getting ready to go up. I'm probably going to throw some fucking Anadrol in the mix. I'm going to throw everything but the kitchen sink in the fucking mix. I'm back on the MK677. I'm making OnlyFans content with my wife. I'm not giving a fuck about the job market or anybody who doesn't want to hire me for the person that I am. I'm completely and totally unfucking hinged and loving every second of it, because for one of the first periods of my life, I feel like I'm really just living for today and not giving a fuck about tomorrow. I stopped worrying about what if I drop dead, what if I orphan my kids, what if I have a heart attack, what if I have a stroke. I don't give a shit. I am just fucking absolutely living in the moment and loving every second. And I felt like it was important to be transparent about that, so that those of you who are just starting this journey, if I am dismissive of somebody who's natty or who's scared or who's worried about what the consequences of something, like, I'm probably the last person on earth that you should be talking to. Do not do any of the things that I'm doing. Please do not follow in my footprints. I am literally killing myself in front of you guys. Like, it's happening on a day-to-day basis. I just keep pushing the envelope even fucking farther. And I really just feel like I have put myself on this island where I'm completely outside of the scope of normalcy. Even for bodybuilders, even most hardcore bodybuilders are at least cycling. They're at least going through clean out periods. They're at least dropping down surely to some kind of relatively sane levels of androgens. And I'm at the point now where I don't know that I'll ever go below 600 milligrams of androgens again. Like, my cruise at this point is 500 milligrams of Test E and 100 milligrams of Tren E. And I can't imagine ever going lower than that. So 600 milligrams per week is probably the lowest amount of androgens I'm going to use in life until it kills me or I have some massive injury or some unforeseen thing takes place. So I am certainly no one to copy or mimic, but maybe at a bare minimum, I can serve to be an example of all of the things you should not do to yourself if you care about living a long and healthy, sane life. I think that it was Nietzsche who said, I believe, something to the effect of, when you stare into the abyss stares back into you. I have gone mad, honestly, I think, on this Trenbolone. I think I have used Trenbolone so long and abused these compounds to such a degree that I honestly am starting to believe that I have lost my faculties and could reasonably be considered mad at this point. So vote for Trump. Don't listen to anything that I'm saying. Use me as an example of all the things not to do in life. For those of you who are wired like me and are going to be in the comment section of this video telling me that you're going to do everything that I'm doing, man, more power to you, brother. I know you guys are out there. I know there's people who are going to be like, oh my God, this is the most inspiring video. I'm going to do the same shit. And I don't sweat that, because I just believe that if that's the way you're wired, you are going to do you whether I make this video or not. And that's why I think it's bullshit. People are like, I don't want to be honest about what I take because I don't want to be responsible for somebody else hurting themselves. That's a fucking cop-out dodge. If somebody's going to hurt themselves, they're going to hurt themselves. If they're going to do gear, they're going to do gear. If they're going to abuse gear, they're going to abuse gear. And it doesn't require them having seen a YouTube video to get them to do it. Nobody made a video that inspired me to act this way. In fact, I'm doing mostly the direct opposite of what every fucking personality on YouTube tells you to do. So clearly that's bullshit. But if you decide to follow in my footsteps, then feel free to comment in the section below. And again, I'm not turning the comments off on this video. So if the comments are off, just wait a while and come back. I'll just keep turning them back on. We have to deal with this asshole who's torpedoing my videos. Just be patient. I'm not deleting your comments. As always, follow me on Instagram. Check my wife out on OnlyFans. She's getting kinkier and kinkier by the day. Give her some feedback. I'm trying to get her out of her shell. The more out of her shell she becomes, the more exciting this content is going to be. For those of you who've signed up at the lofty price of $50, if you've been less than, if you're like, hey, there's not new content every single day, get in the DMs. Let us know what you want to see. This is a group effort, guys. I'm trying to get my wife more on board. There is tons of very revealing content out there. But, it's a work in progress. I got to get her more comfortable. So I'm going to try to get her on there, making some new videos, talking to the audience, get her talking, get her out of her shell. She's on Primo now, and she's very orgasmic. It's been getting wild in the bedroom. So there's no telling what could be coming. Like I said, I update the content every day, but she does all the captioning and the interacting. So go check her out on the various links in my at my channel page. Do all the things you know to do. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.